With the permission of the chair, I am going to start today's lecture series, which is on based on Dalit History Month. So, first of all, my name is Akash Sanjay Kobragade. I am PhD scholar at Delhi University, Department of Sociology, also a coordinator of KIDK, Karunakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. It is an Karunakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge is an online institute and one of its kind. Basically, first of all, on the behalf of Karunakar Institute of Dalit Knowledge, I welcome you all and congratulate you all for Dalit History Month, which is going on through whole April. Now, today's lecture is based on this series of Dalit History Month. On that, we have our guest Professor Chinna sir with us, and the session going to be chaired by our founder of Karunakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge, Professor Dr. Leela Karunakara sir. Today we have this important lecture series, which which is very important because of the we recently celebrated Pule Jayanti and going to be celebrated Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Jayanti. We, the institute, we are dedicated here to provide an alternative space to the students who are engaged with marginalized studies, Dalit studies, tribal studies, and exclusion studies. We are providing them and we are dedicated to provide an alternative space basically and importantly on academic grounds. So this institute previously have one national conference where the students and the participants from all over India, most of from the universities of Pondicherry, Delhi University, JNU, Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Hyderabad Central University, and these people participated in that conference, and we also published a book which is recently published in 2024. Previously that we also have an seminar on in KIDK, and we are frequently doing such kind of academic activities. So this is a kind of a brief introduction of Karunakar Institute of Dalit Knowledge, and we are happy that we are going in future. We are also having such kind of a lecture series and seminars for all the people. So I request Sashikant Bharti to introduce our guest. I welcome and introduce our guest. Sashikant Bharti.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Good morning, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our esteemed chief guest for today's event, Professor Dr. Yagati Chinna Rao sir. He is a professor at the Center for the Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusion Policy, JNU, New Delhi. With over 25 years of teaching and research, his work focuses on Dalit histories, discrimination, exclusion, and social justice. He has held visiting positions at universities in South Africa, Lithuania, Italy, France, Germany, and Scotland. His key publications include Dalit Struggle for Identity and the Past of the Outcasts. Dr. Rao sir has made significant contribution to the Dalit studies and affirmative action in India. Thank you and welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sashikant Bharti. Uh, Now, the Karunakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge, on the occasion of Ambedkar Jayanti, Professor Dr. Chinna sir going to speak on rise and growth of Dalit studies, some historiographical questions. I request Professor Chinna sir, please deliver his lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash, and thank you, Prof. Karunakara. Good morning to you all. And at the very outset, I'm thankful to the organizers for extending the invitation with the hectic schedule, despite my hectic schedule. But Karunakara was bent upon taking the date and time, so I couldn't say no. And in this presentation on rise and growth of Dalit studies, some historiographical questions and trends. This presentation deals with the newer specialization called Dalit studies that is emerging slowly and gaining momentum in the historical research of the recent past. This presentation covers the list of works that delve into Dalit past and how Dalit movement gained attention of the social scientists in general and historians in particular. From the British Marxist School of History from below, attention was directed towards focusing on ordinary people, the oppressed people, without history, the people without history, to humanize history, and to critically reconceptualize the superficial application of Marxian as well as the nationalist frameworks. It was evident that the oppressed, especially the Dalits, constituted a thorny, deviant category, amenable to neither to historiographical models, while the perfunctory references is made eventual historiography in relation to social reform or anti-colonial policies. The Dalits rarely made appearance as a historical subjects or agents. However, some of the rare and best works have come in the form of from ancient period and paradoxically haven't been able to rectify the many essentialist and flawed historical understanding of the Dalits in historiography of modern or colonial Dalit histories. Importantly, the recognition in historical analysis that there was no singular response to colonialism to anti-colonial movement has gained wider currency in historiography and is a productive movement for reconstructions of the histories of the marginalized. The various contradictions, alignments, and tensions from diverse loci yet continues to have deeper resonance with the historical imaginations, trajectories, and visions in the post-colonial condition. The intellectual commitment to exploring subaltern non-elitist history, even before it could explore concrete histories, the turn it took to discourse analysis meant an abandoning of earlier preoccupations. Dalits could not have effectively mobilized as a historical subjects of subaltern history. Even as the Indian History Congress in 2010 organized a Dalit historiography panel, the question of as to whether there existed a body of historiography that can be distinctly conceived as a Dalit historiography was raised. The role of regional histories is immense in being alert to the grand narratives of the kind that tend to overvalue the regional in privileging the imagined national or the classical culture tradition. Histories in these contexts have the potential to broaden the horizons and pluralize the historiographical space in ways that allows for a historical consciousness that is alert the postulations of the particular as a universal, the mechanical application of the dominant framework that erase local distinctiveness and formations and the constant endeavor to excavate new sources to widen the scope of history. In this sense, the task of regional history and the history from below, interestingly, converge to not only elicit the differences and the conjunctions and distinctive trajectories, but also in the sense of that inhabit an epistemically privileged position by virtue of this locus to perceive, reflection, the dominant historiographical approaches and the ideological underpinnings of these frameworks. That the category of regional history, especially in restoring the epistemic value of vernacular languages, can be remarkably productive and can engender in-depth critical and creative approach as well as synergy is remarkably exemplified in Sabyasachi Bhattacharya's edited magnum opus work of Bengal history. It is thorough investment in regional histories is an inclusionary mode that can reveal the true spirit of people and the nation. It is in this spirit that this presentation shall express there exist some of the deeper concerns that continue to challenge the challenges. Mainstream historians' apathy towards Dalit question indicates a failure of the historian's craft and the severe bias within the larger evolution of the archive. The interpretative framework and perhaps ethically incredulity. It has failed spectacularly to recover anything with semblance to the historicity with regard to the Dalit past. Generally, this task has been left to anthropologists and sociologists who have certainly done some valuable work in the area. Nevertheless, the historical point of view is often incomplete and incoherent. The treatment of Dalit history has received as a subject and the way the discipline is framed makes it not only important but also a historical necessity to overcome the constraints and constant biases that have almost gained a status of historical truism. While delivering the Foundation Day lecture at Assam Central University, Silchar, Professor K.N. Panikkar in 2010 entitled his address, convocation address, Foundation Day address rather, was Indian nationalism inclusive? Mentioned that one of the weaknesses that the national movement that it did not have an effective program to ensure the inclusion of the depressed and socially excluded classes into nation. Whatever was attempted in this field was very superficial, is as much as it did not frontally contest the power of the upper class and classes, the legacy of which continues even today. The anti-colonial elitist bourgeoisie and socially conservative ideology of Indian nationalism was not sufficiently inclusive is possibly one of the reasons why the substantial section of the population is still not part of the nation. Inclusiveness, therefore, it is necessary strategy of a nationalism, even with contradictory interests finding a place in it. The attempt to resolve the secondary contradiction within the umbrella of nationalism do not cover the primary contradictions with colonialism. In this sense, the aim of nationalism was not limited to the attainment of freedom, but as Gandhi emphasized, had to lead to the creation of a qualitatively different society, devoid of caste and religious antagonism. To a deputation to students in 1934, Gandhi said two things: the social reordering and the fight for political swaraj must go hand in hand. There can be no question of precedence or a division into watertight compartments here. Nationalism was thus conceived as a combination of political freedom and social emancipation. What nationalism sought to achieve was togetherness. The very first session of the Indian National Congress recognized by identifying its purpose as providing a platform for the people to come together. What brought people together were political struggles and public agitations. The various streams within the movement, with different strategies and modes of struggles, were efforts to ensure their rightful inclusion into the nation. People, however, consisted of diverse groups, castes, classes, and religions with widely differing interests. What was considered as a nationalism, therefore, was bringing the people together regardless of differentiations. Although the anti colonial sentiment ironed out some of the differences and interests, they were so diverse and sharp that the national movement, functioning within elitist liberal framework, was not able to find an effective solution. Therefore, India emerged not only impoverished due to colonial exploitation, but also socially divided. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, in his undelivered address of 1936, what we formally known as Annihilation of Caste, while speaking on the why social reforms necessary for a political reform, he said, I quote, the path of social reform, like the path to heaven at any rate in India, is strewn with many difficulties. Social reform in India has few friends and many critics. The critics fall into two distinct classes. One class consists of political reformers and the other of socialists. This indifference, this thinning of its ranks was soon followed by active hostility from the politicians. Under the leadership of the late Mr. Tilak, the courtesy with which Congress allowed the social conference, the use of its pandal for withdrawn, and the spirit of enmity went to such a pitch that when the social conference was desired to erect its own pandal, a threat was burned. The threat to burn the pandal was held out by its opponents. Thus, in the course of time, the party in favor of political reform won, the social conference vanished and was forgotten. The speech of W.C. Banerjee in 1892 at Allahabad as a president of 8th session of the Congress sounds like a funeral oration on the death of the social conference and is so typical of the Congress attitude that I venture to quote from its following extract. Mr. Banerjee said, I, for one, have no patience with those who will not benefit for the political reform until we reform our social system. I fail to see any connection between the two. Are we not fit for a political reform? Because our widows remain unmarried and our girls are given in marriage earlier than other countries. Because our wives and daughters do not drive about with us visiting our friends. Because we do not send our daughters to Oxford or Cambridge. I have stated that the case for political reform, as put by Mr. Banerjee, there were many who were happy that the victory went to Congress. But those who believe in importance of the social reform may ask, is an argument such as that Mr. Banerjee final? Does it prove that the victory went to those who were in the right? Does it prove conclusively that social reform was no bearing on political reform? It will help us to understand the matter if I state the other side of the case. As Ambedkar asked, are you fit for the political power even though you do not allow a large class of your own countrymen, like the untouchables, to use public schools, to use the public wells, to use the public streets, to eat any food they like? These questions raised by Ambedkar almost a century ago still hold true, foregrounding the crucial connection between the social values, institutions, and political power, freedom, as a critique of form of nature of the anti-colonial politics, unveiling the contradictions and many dimensions from the vantage point of the oppression. Tell it like it was, runs a common American phrase, echoing, no doubt, consciously or unconsciously, Leopold von Ranke, the famous injunction to write history as it really was. Evidently, this is neither as simple nor as it sounds, particularly in case of India's untouchables past. The actual past, its recovery, our quest to approximation of actual history are complex and difficult questions. Though it needs to be noted that the recent advances retrieving the history of untouchables have gained recognizable significance. History in the post-colonial societies assumes a crucial role in not only retrieval of the past, but also constructing identities. Historical enterprise in India encapsulates this crisis in the selective appropriation of the past. The Dalits, also known as outcasts, Harijans, depressed classes, untouchables, and scheduled castes, and so on, constitute the excluded community by not including, and the reference to discrimination abound in historical narratives. Yet, the current historiographical trends, as it regards the outcast past, are ambiguous and elusive in nature. The earlier dominant and conventional histories, both from within the liberal and the Marxist frameworks, in a sense, converged in casting several discursive trends are perceptible in historical narratives that range from negative representation to positive reconstructions of their identities and histories. Often, the acts of these outcasts are dubbed as parochial elements, pro-colonial, or anti-national in nature, and concern for them was mundane. For instance, censorious references to them appear in the nationalist historiography, a meta-narrative of struggle for freedom. This narrative does not recognize non-elite, non-Brahmin contribution towards the national movement. Similarly, the Cambridge historiography, though it contested the ideological basis of the nationalist narrative, does not initiate a dialogue with the social periphery and projects the lower caste as a mere passive followers of the elite leaders. Marxist historians, too, working within the rigid class perspective, show reluctance to address the issues related to the caste. And finally, the subaltern school of thought that emerged in the 80s, despite postulating an alternative framework, suffer from the same limitation as they too fail to raise fundamental issues related to outcast historical experiences. Historical enterprise in India encapsulates this crisis in the selective appropriation of the past. The outcasts are one such people neglected in history. The visibility of outcasts illustrates the crisis in Indian historiography. Given the experience of professional historians' apathy towards the treatment of Dalits, Dalit history as a subject, reflecting on the way the discipline is framed, it is not only important but also a historical necessity to overcome the lurking constraints and the contest biases that have almost gained the status of historical truisms. Dalits have been engaged in construction of their own history by critiquing the Brahminical traditions. The recent initiatives to reconstruct Dalit history generally draw from traditional historical sources like archival material, reports of the census and committees, and gazettes. The biographical and autobiographical writings of Dalit organic intellectuals do exist, as also literature in the form of poems, novels, dramas, contemporary press reports, and caste association activities, though in the vernacular. Works on historical aspects are lesser known, though vibrant. Regions like Punjab, Andhra, Tamil Nadu were not very well known historically. Ambedkar's birth centenary year, 1991, event marked a significant shift, endangering the renewed interest in Dalit studies, witnessed a numerous seminars, collection of works, and the proliferation of research papers and articles. The following decade, since the birth centenary, literature on various aspects of hitherto neglected, unexplored issues gained attention, resulting in voluminous output as much as that of all the previous years put together. Generally, the study of Dalits has been often been left to the anthropologists and sociologists. They have done valuable studies, but the historical point of view often incomplete and incoherent. Dalit history not yet became a part of Indian historiography, even though the study is of immense importance with regard to the inherent radical democratic identity and its interrelation with the contemporary movements. Available studies on Dalit history in India, to a great extent, suffer from lack of historical and written documentation, provide a scope for ambiguity. This is an indicative of mainstream historical approaches and apathy towards Dalit consciousness and maneuverings. The different parts of the country during the colonial period. Many works dealing with the stratification of Indian society do give a chapter or a section on Dalits of a particular region or a particular of a country as a whole, as a historical antecedent. The saga of outcast from Paraya, an untouchable whose very shadow was considered polluting, to the present day defiant Dalit, has been a long, troubled, and painful. For the different communities, juridically encapsulated within the official category of scheduled caste, receiving recognition as equal citizens of democratic republic is a project still waiting to be actualized. Owing to their extremely dehumanized and degraded position in Indian society, Dalits in colonial India invited the interest of missionaries and anthropologists. Most of the information on the issue emerged as an outcome of missionaries' travel records and personal accounts, official papers, district gazettes, ethnographic notes, and census reports, and other such sources. Some of such writings you have Risley, William Crookey, Enthoven, Sherring, Edgar Thurston, Rose, Russell, Nesfield, and Anant Krishna Iyer. During the same period, some other Western as well as Indian scholars also worked extensively on history of caste in India. These studies contributed in furnishing very rich descriptive accounts of the thick background, occupational pattern, and customary habits and practices of almost all important communities belong to the different regions of India in the late 19th and early 20th century. Perhaps what is interesting is most authorities on caste in colonial India were at some level or the other related to the census operations, and this resulted in detailed caste and tribe-wise denominations of population India in the census of 1931, with a considerable variation in their dialectic, detailed tabulation and form. Though enthusiasm for history emerged in India sometime in the mid 19th century, and the historical research as a discipline came in the early 20th century, and it remained completely silent on the issue of Dalits. This was despite Ambedkar's exploration on caste system at Columbia University in 1916, where he presented a paper on castes in India, their mechanism, genesis, and development. Ambedkar advanced the theory of caste, refuting the racial explanation of the caste system and presented by the ethnographers and the Western scholars. Perhaps the earliest exhaustive and systematic work on any Dalit caste is by Emma Rosenberg Cloud. The title of the book is While Sieving Sandals, Tales of Telugu Paraya Tribe. It was published as early as 1899, consists of thick description of life of a Paraya tribe known as Madigas, who were leather workers in Telugu-speaking regions of southern India. Again, after a gap of 2.5 decades, George Briggs in 1920s, and another non-historian and non-Indian in origin, published another monograph called The Chamars. This has been a full-length monograph on social and cultural, economic, and religious life of the Chamars of United Provinces. Another work followed by Briggs was William S. Hunt, work that deals with the Travancore region of South India. One certainly cannot trace any other study on Dalits during the colonial period. The post-colonial India witnessed its first anthropological work on Nimar Balahis in the central provinces in 1951 by Stephen Fuches. By studying the social structure and culture of untouchables, Fuch tried to fill the lacume of anthropological literature on the marginalized sections of the Indian society. However, there continued to be a silence as studies on the marginalized sections remained invisible for another 2 decades. In the 1970s, caste again attracted the attention of scholars, but in a different paradigm altogether. It started to be regarded as studies on social structure as a part of problem-oriented studies. For instance, works of Harold Isaacs, I.P. Desai, or C. Lakshmana. Harold Isaacs based his work on introducing 50 educated Dalits from different professional backgrounds, and Desai, in his fieldwork of 69 Gujarati villages, have separately located in many areas where Dalits were seriously discriminated against, including the minimum human right as basic as drawing water. While the former concluded that root of many social disabilities laid the problem of acute poverty among the Dalits, the latter highlighted as many as 9 different forms of discrimination which the Dalits of his sample area suffered from. Similarly, C. Lakshmana commendably analyzed the extent of discrimination in a sample of 20 Andhra villages, ranging from issue of drawing water from the wells to interaction among the women folk. Among those who have visualized the problem of Dalits in the perspective of social change, some attempted their work in the rural areas, while others based their studies on the urban space. While some of them located the Dalit mobility upward and the traditionally established social hierarchy due to their own initiatives and under the impact of many modern forces, that is, constitutional, legal, political, and others have been in the light of ongoing urbanization and industrialization. Most of them have visualized social mobility in the context of changes in the occupational pattern, customary practices, behavior, and levels of aspiration among Dalit society. However, M.N. Srinivas noted that the Sanskritization process is never applicable to Dalits in the sense that they can never rise as a group. This led to several other significant contributions on the issue, as Epstein, Henry Bentley, P.C. Alexander, Owen Lynch. All these studies focused on social change among Dalits. The most influential work of the period was done by Eleanor Joliet. Joliet not only depicted the process of Dalit utilization of emerging political changes in Maharashtra, but perhaps she was the first historian to construct a critical and a broader historical framework to explore Dalit history in the modern times. It was then followed by an edited volume by Michael Mahar. Though the title suggests that it deals with the contemporary issues, but the authors have assessed the changes in the 1920s and 30s. This was further followed by Satish Agarwal, Anand Patwardhan, Sen Gupta, D'Souza, and many others who examined the positive impact of urbanization and modernization on the Dalits in their individual studies. Locating change in a specific context, TK women perceives that they have so far served a negative purpose of creating caste consciousness. Uma Ramaswamy argues that Dalit politics resulted in the establishment of separate identity as helpless, dependent, and destitute community rather than integrating them into the rest of the society. Agarwal and Ashraf have similar opinion in their study of Haryana and noted that the overall impact of public measures is too mild to make any purposeful assessment. While analyzing the socio-economic and cultural life of Dalits in the face of developmental measures, Singh realizes that the most of the programs fail to attain absolute success mainly due to relative failure of their implementation. This study shows that Baron Joliet, all the available research on Dalits remained within the domain of academic sociologists, and none of the studies mentioned above were concerned with the Dalit movement. Dalits were often categorized as either as a marginal people without history of their own or as objects rather than subjects of history. The Dalit movement has not fared much better in the histories of modern India by Indian historians who generally relegate Dalits to a chapter on social reform and portray them as a passive victims, recipients of the beneficiaries rather than active participants in the political and cultural struggles. This brief survey would simply strongly suggest that there was no decisive stream of politics as Dalit movement, particularly during the colonial period. Thompson and Garrett did refer to the Dalit movement at several points, but severely limited. Percival Spear, in his revision of modern section, touches upon the issue of interface um, in reference to Gandhi. Among the British historians of modern India, LSSO Malay devoted a section on Dalit movement and portrayed it as a movement for upliftment of the untouchables, and it initiated and sustained by others. A later edition of the literature in modern India by Western scholar Judith Brown, who did monitor a condition of Dalits at several points to their history, but made no reference to any organized efforts or Dalit initiatives to improve their own lot. The Indian historians, by and large, did not critically engage the role of Dalits either in the anti-colonial struggle or their own upliftment. The only paragraph that Mazumdar devotes to Dalits regards them as objects of philanthropic and social work conducted by others. In his later work, Majumdar referred to Ambedkar and Dalits as mere political bargainers of 1930s and 40s struggles, which ultimately led to independence. However, his long depiction on Dalits portrayed social reformers, Congress, and Gandhi as a prime movers, and casts Ambedkar as role of perspective critic. R.R. Shetty refers to Dalits only in connection with the Communal Award of 1932 and as objects of upliftment work. Bipin Chandra confined his treatment of Dalits to three-page section on the struggle against the caste in his textbook with a mere activist role. However, his later work lost that minimal focus too. The two important names to mention in the latter days are Sumit Sarkar and K.N. Panikkar. Sumit Sarkar included briefly assertion of Mahar movement, and K.N. Panikkar presented an account of freedom struggle with the grassroots perspectives. Virtually, for all these above mentioned historians, Dalits were not significant, and even if they were referred to, they were not seen as acting on their own, but in the shadow of the socially concerned members of the dominant caste. Dalit maneuverings and consciousness was perceived as mundane at, or at the most parochial and negative. Such interpretations indicate a failure of the scholars to get into the intricacies of Dalit perspective. This kind of historicization of Dalits is elitist and often patronizing. Metaphorically speaking, for nationalist historians and caste Hindu sociologists, village was a representation of upper caste domain, while the Marxist historians recognized the existence of Dalit huts, and yet their history was reduced to class history. The first monograph on Dalit movement appeared in 1980s by Marx Jargensmeyer on Dharma movement of Punjab. He traces the history of Dharma movement and its origins of 1920s to its demise of 1940s and its revivalism in 1970s. However, his major concern is not with the history of one particular movement, but with the role of religion in the lower caste struggle for the social change. Following Mark Zergensmeyer, studies by S.K. Gupta, A.C. Pradhan, and Triloknath sequentially in the mid-80s provided a comprehensive view of Dalit movement in India. The major landmark, as I said in the beginning, major landmark in the history of Dalit studies came on the eve of birth centenary of Ambedkar. This was followed by a plethora of publications, adding to the growing literature on Ambedkar on one hand, and surge of academic interest in Dalit politics, Dalit movement on the other. Though the number of monographs written in the Dalit movement in 1990s was small in quantitative terms, but discursive framework, orientation, signified a shift of Dalit studies. The decade of 1990s saw several micro-level studies on various aspects of Dalit life, often related to the post-colonial era of Dalits in general, or centered around Ambedkar in particular. Nevertheless, by 1990s, it had become an apparent that there are major differences in the approaches to study the subject had implications for the understanding of the Dalit movement. The class perspective of Marxists, which had termed the Dalit movement as divisive and dangerously pro-British, was challenged from within. Bharat Patankar and Gail Omet forcefully noted that the communists as well as the Marxists have to think seriously about the theoretical basis for the immediate practical solution to the problem of caste oppression. They suggest that a concrete alternative has therefore to be put forwarded. This was due to belief that the main contradiction that was that of the oppressed Indian nationality and imperialism. Offering a critical and socio-historical interpretation, Gail Omet located the Dalit movement in the framework of Immanuel Wallerstein, that is, anti-systemic movements, which in the language of functionalist sociological theory indicates value-oriented movement as opposed to the norm-oriented movements. As a result, there emerged a liberal trend among the group of scholars who believed that it was the ancient Hindu reactionary traditions and the deep-rooted prejudice against the Dalits by caste Hindus that had led to the protests from the Dalits. This trend viewed Dalit protest as a necessary outcome of the obscurantist Hindu tradition. Analyzing the broader changes in the Dalit studies, Ghanshyam Shah classified Dalit movements into two significant trends, that is, reformative and alternative movements. And another trend developed in the decades of 1980s came popularly identified as subaltern school of thought. This school dismissed the previous historical writings as elitist historiography and attempted to create a newer ways to rewriting the South Asian history. Two major themes that have emerged in the writings of the scholars writing under the subaltern banner are peasant resistance and peasant consciousness in colonial India, and the relationship between peasantry and the national movement. The term subaltern categorized under its fold, I quote, the uh, lesser rural gentry, impoverished landlords, rich peasants, and upper middle class peasants. However, this school, by offering a new mode of understanding history that had very little to offer to the socially oppressed, economically exploited, politically marginalized, landless agricultural laborers, that is Dalits. Significantly, these categories were left outside the ambit of subaltern construction, and the subaltern as a category comprised the rural gentry and impoverished landlords who were the direct oppressors of and the exploiters of Dalit masses. The Dalitist or Dalit perspectives of Indian history can be invariably distinct from the subaltern. I prefer to call this trend as sub-subaltern, which is to emphasize the need to move beyond the subaltern and deployed in historiography, given its limitations and analytical category. Thus, the dominant schools of history writing in India are yet to acknowledge scores of historyless communities without which the history remains severely elitist and unholistic. Nevertheless, individual, both Dalit and non-Dalit, attempts at reconstruction of the outcast past in the recent decades have made a valuable contribution in this direction. The first amongst these, Shekhar Bandyopadhyay's work on two caste movements of eastern and northern Bengal. This was followed by Rajshekhar Basu's study on Punjab and more descriptive and detailed work on history of Dalits in southern India, and Saurav Dubey on central India. The two important works on Tamil Nadu was Nicholas Dirks and Hugo Gorins. Swaraj Basu work on Namsudras of Bengal is another work of historical importance. The history of Dalits in North India by Badri Narayan Tiwari, Ram Narayan Rawat, Nandini Guptu provide regional focus. Speaking on the theme of the recent occasion, Swaraj Basu noted that the complete silence on Dalits in two major historical works on nationalist politics in the United Provinces, Gyan Pandey, the ascendancy of Congress in Uttar Pradesh, and Gyanesh Kudesia, region, nation, and heartland. And both these, one cannot, uh, Dalits were, while writing on the UP contemporary, they overlooked Dalits in history of national politics. In the recent past, there are some important works emerged outside the paradigm of history, but a very much historical importance in critical history and social sciences have been writing about Dalit experience. In this category, we have Devjani Ganguly on caste and Dalit life world, post-colonial perspective, Gopal Guru, Sundar Sarukkai, and K. Sachanana, and others who have been situating their arguments based on solid evidence of various kinds that showed multiplicity of Dalit experiences. There have been efforts to accommodate Dalits into narrative of the dominant caste or classes. On Western India, as far as the Dalit movement is concerned, the more prominent work by P.G. Jogdan, a noted sociologist, even on the history of Dalits in southern India, we have very few names to count. In addition to Rajshekhar Basu mentioned, we have Rupa Vishwanath on South India, Sanal Mohan who worked on Dalit history in Kerala, Adappa Satyanarayana's work on Andhra Dalits. Thus, we have some research that provide a broad overview of historical trends concerning Dalit movement. In the absence of mainstream historians concerned, the Dalit studies have struggled to interrogate the Brahminical traditions and write the history from below. The project of de-Brahminization of Indian history has appeal among the Dalit intelligentsia in writing Indian history, culture, and philosophy. As far as the Karnataka is concerned, There are works on the aspects of political consciousness, caste conflicts, atrocities on Dalits in general, and you know, uh, and Dalit movement in Karnataka. Not many works are available, but a very few outlined and sketchy. Dalit historiography or a Dalit perspective of history establishes its own method by challenging the colonial, national, Marxist, and subaltern approaches of Indian historiography. In such a situation, one may form a different opinion on the subject, but certainly not to conclude the way in which Deepesh Chakravarti does. In one of his recent writings, Chakravarti says, Dalit historians have not always cared for evidence in the way that we might expect them to if they were our colleagues or our students in the universities. He quotes Kanchai Ailya, for instance, writes with a clear and explicit intention to skew the use of sources and evidence and to base his history on experience alone. He would much rather write of his personal and Dalit group's experience of oppression. The second, Badrinarayan's research shows that as the demand for pass on the part of the upcoming low caste groups in India does not translate into demand for more academic histories. If anything, what he documents is veritable festival of tradition and tradition of invention. As far as my limited knowledge goes, Kanchailaya is neither a Dalit nor a historian by training. In any case, there was no absolute truth, and historical events lend to infinite readings, and the deeper causes for such invented or fictional histories resonate more with memories of communities that the complete silence or near invisibilization of such histories by those professional upper caste historians. It indicates a failure of historians' craft and the several biases within larger evolution of archive, the interpretative framework, and perhaps the ethical incredulity. It is an ironic indicator of historians' craft in India, where it has failed spectacularly to recover anything with semblance to a historicity with regard to Dalit past majority of communities. Yet, given the journey from being out of bounds of history to the where several attempts at remedifying inbuilt flaws within the discipline of history, be it imagined, invented, celebrated, or even fragmented, it needs to be acknowledged that the progress needs to be a climb, despite certain quaint objections from the critics. Though the history of untouchables yet to become a part of Indian historiography, the studies mentioned above are of immense relevance and significance. Of late, even professional historian bodies have started giving its due importance to the issue. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for a wonderful lecture. Uh, this lecture is really enriching for us in field of Dalit history. Uh, I understand that how this historian are systematically blackout and fixed Dalits in a particular framework, and due to which we are facing such kind of academic problems right now. We are really thanks, sir. On behalf of Karunakar Institute of Dalit Knowledge, you give a very fantastic lecture today. Now the floor is open for question answers. If there is any questions, please participant, I request you to ask, and I request you to please be particular to the questions only.
Hello, Akash.
Hello.
Hello, Akash. Balaji here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Yes. Yeah. Uh, I would like to congratulate first for organizing such a super and thoughtful lecture for us. My one request is that the paper which has been read by Sir, please, if possible, share this paper which will enrich on paper to us where we can take references of this paper for our next research papers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. This is a
Yes,
intellectual
yes.
property of Professor Chinna Rao sirs only. We request him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If he'll
Yeah,
permit,
we.
he will really provide this
Yeah.
on
Fine,
consultation.
fine. No issue. I'll
Yes,
send the
yes.
paper. Don't worry.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Another question, please. Is there any questions from the participant? I think there is no question from the participant.
Okay.
Uh, okay. So we now move to our next section.
Excuse
May I
me,
request?
excuse me. Sorry for interrupting you. Actually, I have a question to ask, Sir
Yeah,
Professor
please.
Jayanti, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. First of all, good afternoon, sir. Sir, I am Dev Salamsumana Research Scholar at Central University of South Bihar, and I am working on the subcategorization of scheduled caste. I have read your book, Dividing Dalits. So, I want to ask a question related to that topic. Sir, what are the prospects of Dalit politics and identity politics due to subcategorization?
No more politics. Just infighting.
Sir, but in South, the Diga Dandora movement, sir, it's also a part of politics, sir.
What is that? No, no. That's what exactly I'm saying. Now there is no Dalit movement or Dalit politics. It's internal infighting.
Okay, sir, thank you.
There is another question from Mr. Moon. Dr. Moon,
Yes,
please
sir.
ask the question.
Yes, sir. I am Dr. Moti Kapoor Moon, Praful Kumar, and I question to Professor Chinna Rao, sir. Sir,
Yes,
focus
go
on
ahead.
that. Sir, you focus on that. The Badrinath Tiwari also wrote the one book about the Dalit movement in North India,
Yeah.
particularly in UP and Bihar. But is it true for this one? He did not focus on particularly what is the real movement of Dalit movement in North India and also Maharashtra. Dalit Panther movement. After that, Manyavar Kansiram Sahab movement, Jati Todo Samaj Jodo Abhiyan, and also not focus on this particular Mandal Ayog, means Article 340, 341, 342. So, sir, what is your analysis and suggestion for the
See,
young scholars?
see,
Yeah.
if somebody is doing research on a particular theme, we cannot direct him what he has to do. You, at the maximum, you can criticize him or you can review his work. At least, yeah, being a non-Dalit, he is doing something. Hmm?
Yes,
Many
sir.
of our Dalit scholars are not doing enough. How many of our teachers are doing it? Or our university teachers are doing it, despite they being Dalits? Hmm?
Yeah.
So
But
what
but
my
it
concern
is,
is that my
sir,
concern is that yeah, please.
sir, it is my analysis that the professors or the intellectual speakers belongs from the upper caste. They did not give the real analysis for this one, and to
Then that's our
also
responsibility to do it.
yeah.
Who is stopping you? You do it.
Yes, properly this Sarkar also, yes,
Yeah.
the historian also, Chandra. Yeah,
That's fine. I'm
yes.
not denying that. But at least they are doing something which we are not doing it.
But they are not doing particularly, sir.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other question?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. No question.
Sir, sir, sir. My one question.
Yes.
And Badrinaran has written Republic of Hindutva last in
Balaji, Dr.
2023.
Balaji, Balaji,
Yes, sir.
Dr.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Balaji, introduce yourself. Introduce
sir,
yourself.
sir. I am Dr. Balaji Chede, now in charge of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar Sidhu Kanu Murmu Dalit and Tribal Center in Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya Wardha.
Yeah.
Sir, I would like to listen from you one comment from Badri Narayan's book Hindutva Republic of Hindutva.
Oh, no, no. This is not a comment on any. If you have any question on my lecture, you ask me. Why do you want to comment on somebody else's work?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay? Not in public platform at least.
Hello.
Is that okay, Dr. Balaji?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will talk to you later, sir.
Okay, fine.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Jayveem. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So very good afternoon, good morning, sir. I am Suhas Kamlakar. I am doing my PhD presently from Jamia Millia. So, sir, I have a little query about your lecture which you a point which you gave, that is selective appropriation. Like in today's time, it is being portrayed as negative, or it is the history is being reconstructed. So
Yeah.
so I want to just ask you about my topic of research. I am relating it with my topic, that is how Dr. Ambedkar is being appropriated in present contemporary period. So,
Yeah.
sir, when you when you gave the source of Ileana Zedliet work, so can you give me some brief points about how should I move ahead with that literature, sort of? And if any other source, please
You are
share
in
it.
Delhi, na?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. We'll
Presently
meet
I'm in
sometime.
Nagpur, but I'm from
Yeah.
Delhi. Yeah.
Yeah. So, drop in sometime.
Yeah, sure, sir. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the lecture. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, any other question, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, uh, good afternoon, sir. Myself Deepanjali from
Yes.
Dr. Shakuntala Mishra, National Rehabilitation University, Lucknow campus. Sir, currently we are seeing that a scenario of Ambedkarism philosophy and the scenario of Dalit disabled women are another atrocity. When we feel like educationally improvement, then what improvement we want? Please describe.
What is that? हिंदी में बोले बेटा, नो इश्यू.
ठीक है, थैंक यू सर। हम ये पूछ रहे हैं कि अगर हम दलित महिलाओं जो कि विकलांग कैटेगरी की हैं या पुरुष हैं, अगर हम उनका देखते हैं तो जैसे अगर हम रूरल एरियाज में जाते हैं तो हमारा जो सबसे बड़ा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है कि जो हम एजुकेशनली जो हम असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर तक की जर्नी है, रिसर्च की जर्नी है, उसको कैसे कंप्लीट करें, कैसे चीज़ों को बहुत बेहतर तरीके से जो ग्रामीण अंचल के लोगों तक है वहाँ तक पहुँचा सकें।
Look for the opportunity where you can get admission and where you can get better institutions and better training. So that is the only because सुविधा हमारा पास नहीं आता है ना, सुविधा के पास हमको जाना पड़ता है.
यस सर।
हाँ, ये सुविधा जो गवर्नमेंट स्कीम है, वेलफेयर मेजर से हमारा पास नहीं आता है तो हमको जाना पड़ता है उनके पास, तभी तो कुछ आगे बढ़ने की मौका मिलेगा. इतना सारे सेंट्रल इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, देख लो.
थैंक यू सर।
Right.
Is there any question?
Yes, sir.
I have one question. Can I introduce?
Introduce yourself and ask a question.
I am Orkunilda from West Bengal. Sir, I want to ask you something. This is a part of my research topic. In West Bengal, if you see the population-wise, it has probably the second largest Dalit population. But why Dalit literature or Dalit movement, modern day Dalit literature, Dalit movement, it started very late in Bengal.
Because आप लोग बंगाल में ना, this is आपकी क्लास ऑब्सेशन चलता है, कास्ट पे आप रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करते हैं 40 साल.
Why? But ये reason क्यों है? मतलब ये जो
No, I tell you the other way around. When you look at the NCRB data, there were no cases against atrocities cases in West Bengal, because for them it is a class war, not a caste atrocity.
Exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
But
So
isn't
when the
it is
state is
the
not
it is
ready
a
to,
process.
state is not, please.
It is isn't it is a state is basically invisibilizing the issue of caste.
Exactly.
Okay, okay,
Hmm?
sir. Thank you.
Right. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Kosla, go ahead.
Sir, good afternoon. And let me first of all congratulate you for such an enlightenment lecture. And also, I would thank to KIDK for organizing such a wonderful lecture, sir. And sir, my the small query is that in this Dalit literature, how would you, relate with this present, caste division, and how it will ignite the young research scholar to do research on a caste division basis or Dalit as a whole? Can you please,
So,
sir?
because see, for instance, places like Andhra, where the subcaste divisions are stark realities.
Yes,
And simultaneously, last 30 years, the divisional movement has been divided is one thing you have to accept. But the amount of literature this divisional movement produced is enormous. The kind of literature that the Majiga movement produced last 30 years, it is, more than or double than all previous years put together.
yes,
So it depends on how it takes turn, literature. Because
yes,
there you have, a literature on Majigas, literature on Malas, some literature on unified movement. You have all varieties of literature.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
So it's
Because,
not one-sided.
yeah.
Please.
Why? Because I belong to a DOM subcategory within the
Okay.
Dalit.
Okay.
So if you search some literature on DOM category, you will find very few literature and very few
Exactly.
literature written in Odia language.
Okay.
And take for instance, if tomorrow a young scholar want to do research on, DOM, then he has to struggle a lot to,
See, I know. In fact, many communities are like that.
yeah.
There are many.
Yes,
So
yes.
then take up a responsibility as a small research project, if not big book.
Yeah, I'm planning, sir. I'll, I'll
We have
discuss
to.
next.
We have
Yes,
to take up this as a responsibility.
yes, yes.
In any case, you are in a research institute and
Yeah.
you have to do a research.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So apply whatever that you think, if not 1, 2, 3, fine. For the
Right.
rest of your next 20 years service, make it 2 or 3 monographs on your community.
Right, right.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right.
Thank
Rather than accusing that there is no literature, what is our responsibility then? What are we doing?
you. Yeah.
Okay?
Right, sir. I agree.
Right.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Suraj is raising his hand. Please, Suraj, go ahead. Little loud, Suraj. We are not able to hear you.
Please, if you are not speaking, mute yourself so that I don't get disturbed.
Suraj, go ahead, please. Okay, Suraj have a problem. So there is a Manish Kumar. Manish Kumar, please go ahead.
Ask Soros to write the question on the message box.
And I request to Suraj to write his question on message box so I can read for him. Yeah, Manish Kumar.
Jai Bhim, sir. Good afternoon, sir. I am audible, sir.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Sir, I am ex-student of Baba Saheb Bhimrao Central University, and now I am currently enrolled in PhD Central University Southware Gaya. Sir, I have selected a topic for my research topic: cultural history of Dome caste in North Bihar colonial period. Sir, please suggested me how to do work my research.
Who's the supervisor? Who is the supervisor?
Sir, Priti Anil Khandare, ma'am.
Yes. If I tell you something and your supervisor doesn't like you, then he or she will not give you PhD. When you come for the field work, then we will meet and discuss. Okay, Manish?
Okay, sir.
Right.
Baba Sahib,
Creamy layer in essays and what is your opinion? You people asking everything under the Dalit studies? Not on my lecture. So I just published a book on this creamy layer issue and all, like the looking glass, reflections on Supreme Court judgment. You people can read. Okay, Suraj? The book title is The Looking Glass. Reflections on Supreme Court judgment. It's an edited volume.
Okay. Now there is only last question. If anyone want to have any question, please. This will be the last question. Is there any question?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Please go ahead. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Sir, I am Dr. Yogesh Paswan, teaching journalism at the University of Delhi in journalism department. Sir, I have a concern about the impact of the Mughal regime and the British regime on that excluded society.
What is that?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Educational casteism.
Yogesh sir, please repeat your question. We are not able to hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, he is asking about the Mughal regime and
Hello.
yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Yogesh, bolo.
Sir, I am concerned about the impact of the Mughal regime and the British regime on excluded society. Because during the Mughal regime, there is no the types of Dalit nomenclature. How we will discuss, analyze the that impact of the societal development of that related class, and what is the impact of British regime?
पूरा इतिहास का आपको इधर ही पता चाहिए पढ़ाना.
No, sir. I want a little concern about that.
No, read. There are materials available. On Mughal period, Irfan Habib has written Caste in Mughal period, or Shirin Musbi is written, or ancient period you have Suvira Jaiswal has written. So that you'll understand. Or you take, the Past of the Outcast volume published by Warren Blackswan in 2017. There you could see some of references.
Thank you. Thank you. Now there is no questions because our guest have dedicated a very few time from his very busy schedule. So we are going to move ahead to our another section. So right now I request Professor Dr. Leela Karunakara sir, chairperson of this lecture series. I request him to please give his remark, chairperson remarks.
Yeah.
Professor Dr. Leela Kapurayas.
Professor, yeah. Professor Yagati Chinnarao Garu. He is very eminent historian of and a very eminent historian, highly acclaimed scholar of my generation. Uh, we studied together in JNU. We know each other for a long time. I personally know him since my JNU days as a good orator and having good skills of communication. So, in my understanding, Professor Chillarao Garu, he is a good orator as well as communicator. Above all, he is a very eminent and highly acclaimed scholar of my generation. Chillarao Garu, for past this 1.5 hour, he took us to such a wonderful, authentic historical journey through the colonial period, post-colonial period, and the present and contemporary period also. Very authentically, he presented his lecture how this Dalit historical methodology have been shaped by both Dalit as well as non-Dalit scholars all these years, be it in colonial period and post-colonial period, even the contemporary period, how this Dalit and non-Dalit scholars shaped the direction of the Dalit historiography. I am really thankful to Professor Agati Chinnarao Garu for giving his valuable time and wonderful opportunity that has really contributed to enrich the knowledge over Dalit studies to my young scholars who are participants of this lecture. I have seen that there are many associate professors and doctor, the scholars who have completed their PhD and who are doing the PhD work, and most of the scholars are interested in how to go with their scholarship. So I suggest them the research scholars visit Professor Yagati Chinnarao Garu in JNU. Certainly he will be providing a guidance, and this is really very important occasion for the Savarnikar Institute of Dalit Knowledge, which has taken the initiative to invite Professor Chinnarao Garu. When I asked him to deliver a lecture with all his busy schedule, with all his commitments, prior commitments, he accepted my invitation. I am personally thankful to Professor Chinnarao Garu for this, giving your valuable time and contributing your thoughts and ideas to the scholars who want to listen to you through this platform, through this institute. So this initiative is, as you rightly said, Dalit scholars are not that much of giving their energy and time to build Dalit knowledge, to produce the Dalit knowledge. Professor Chinnarao Garu, I would like to take this opportunity to inform you that this is an initiative from my own scholars, PhD scholars and students, that they come with an idea that why can't we have an institute like this, so that we could have a Dalit narrative, we could have interaction through the Dalit narrative, and we could have an opportunity to produce Dalit knowledge. So this institute is with the aim of such ideals. It has been established. It's just an online institute. Professor Chinna Garu, this is an initiative of conducting Dalit knowledge series lectures. So we are happy that we are really privileged that yours is the first such an lecture to begin with the Dalit knowledge series of lecture on the occasion of Ambedkar Jayanti. We are really thankful to Professor Chinna Garu. We are really personally I am thankful to you. And I really believe that all the participants, the young, particularly young scholars, who are really benefited out of your lecture. Thank you very much once again to Professor Chinna. Thank you. Yeah. Over to Akash. Over to Akash.
Thank you, Professor Karunakara sir. Now I request Shreyat, Mr. Shreyat, for a vote of thanks.
थैंक यू आकाश जी। सबसे पहले मैं आज के इस ऑनलाइन सेमिनार में जुड़े हुए सभी प्रतिभागियों का विशेष आभार प्रकट करता हूं या आपने अपना कीमती समय निकालकर इसमें प्रतिभाग किया। और मैं आज के जो हमारे जो गेस्ट हैं जिन्होंने बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण लेक्चर दिया, राइज एंड ग्रोथ ऑफ दलित स्टडीज सम हिस्टोरियोग्राफिकल क्वेश्चंस पर, जिससे हम सभी इतिहास पढ़ने वाले, पढ़ाने वाले और गैर इतिहास विषय के शोधार्थी विद्यार्थी भी बहुत लाभान्वित हुए। मैं प्रोफेसर चिन्ना सर का विशेष धन्यवाद देता हूं कि उन्होंने हम सबका ज्ञानवर्धन किया। और चिन्ना सर से मैं एक बार मिल भी चुका हूं, वो 2014 में बाबा साहब भीमराव अम्बेडकर यूनिवर्सिटी में इतिहास विभाग के लिए लेक्चर देने के लिए आए हुए थे। तब से मैं चिन्ना सर की राइटिंग्स को पढ़ता रहता हूं, उनसे जुड़ा हुआ हूं। तो मैं चिन्ना सर का विशेष धन्यवाद देता हूं कि आपने कर्मकारा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ दलित नॉलेज के अनुरोध को स्वीकार किया और अम्बेडकर जयंती के पावन अवसर पर हम सभी को ज्ञान से लाभान्वित किया, अपने ज्ञान से लाभान्वित किया। मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं मेरे मार्गदर्शक, संरक्षक और इस सेशन के चेयरपर्सन प्रोफेसर एल कारुनगारा सर को, जिन्होंने दलित इतिहास के लिए 2 बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण किताबें दलित इतिहास को लेकर लिखी हैं, जिसमें मैं उनका जिक्र करना चाहूंगा यहाँ पर। हिस्ट्री ऑफ दलित आइडेंटिटी और फ्रॉम दलित टू पवित्र दलित, ये दलित इतिहास और दलित पहचान के लिए बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण शोध है। और कई बार हम ये देखते हैं कि लोग दलित पहचान को गलत तरीके से पेश करते हैं। तो मेरा उन सभी से विनम्र अनुरोध रहेगा कि जिनको भी दलित पहचान पर शर्म आती है, गर्व नहीं होता है, एक बार प्रोफेसर कारुनगारा सर की पुस्तक को जरूर पढ़ें, तो आपको भी दलित पहचान से गर्व होगा। चूंकि मैं सर के साथ पीएचडी भी कर रहा हूँ, तो मैंने सर से ही सीखा है कि सर ने बोला कि दलित पहचान शर्म का नहीं, प्राइड का विषय है। और हम लोग बहुत ही गर्व के साथ कहते थे प्राउड टू बी दलित। तो दलित पहचान बहुत ही गर्व का विषय है। मैं ऐसे प्रोफेसर कारुनगारा सर का धन्यवाद देता हूँ कि आपकी सोच ने जो कारुनगारा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ दलित नॉलेज जो संस्थान बनाया है, उससे हम सभी आजीवन जुड़े रहेंगे। और जो भी गतिविधियां या जो भी कार्य आप हमको बताएंगे, हम उसको पूर्ण करने का प्रयास करेंगे। और मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ संचालन कर रहे आज के सत्र का आकाश खोबरागड़े जी को, जो कि पीएचडी कर रहे हैं यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ दिल्ली से। मैं उनका भी धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं कि आपने बहुत ही कुशल संचालन किया। और मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं शशिकांत भारती जी का, जिन्होंने हमारे अतिथि का परिचय कराया। और अंत में मैं जिनका परिचय नहीं हो पा रहा या मैं इनको नहीं जानता, उन सभी अतिथियों का धन्यवाद कि आपने हमारे अनुरोध को स्वीकार किया और इस ऑनलाइन सत्र में जुड़े और प्रोफेसर चिन्ना सर के लेक्चर से आपने ज्ञान प्राप्त किया। थैंक यू। जय भीम।
Thank you, Shreyat. Thank you all the participants, professors, doctors, research scholars. We will meet again with such informative lecture series. And I declare that this seminar is end. We will meet again Bye bye. Take care. Happy Bhim Jayanti to you all.